Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another ERG Employee Resource Group ERG resource sessions. I'm excited to be here today with my guest, Marisa. And before I have her introduce herself, just talk a little bit about what this is. So, I am an employee resource group consultant. I work a lot with organizations that want to launch brand new groups and communities. Is the word I use a lot in their workplace. So, starting from scratch, we need to bring our employees together impactfully. What do we do? Where do we start from? And I also work with companies that have brand new groups, early stage of their journey, and then organizations that have large employee resource group, business resource groups, and for that audience, more focused on professional development for the ERG leaders and resource support for the company in order to have the groups be effective and to make sure they are evolving in the right direction. So, one of the standing programs I have is the monthly First Friday Employee Resource Groups, All Things ERG call. We've been doing this for over 3 years, and would love to have you join us if you have some time. Friday, every first Friday at 10 a.m. PST, so 12 noon EST. We are all on Zoom. We have a virtual session. So the next one is coming up soon in October, depending on when you are replaying this. Make sure you sign up. I'll put the link in the comment. Make sure you sign up, and we hope you can join us. But one of the things that also emerged from this monthly session is a need to have deeper conversations with thought leaders, with business leaders around different topics that are coming up. And so for today, we are focusing on Hispanic Heritage Month. And my guest, Marisa, is going to share a little bit of actually how we connected. It was very interesting, and talking about storytelling. But yeah, we're going to dive into some questions and get to know a little bit more about Marisa, but also have you walk away with some strategies of what you can do as a leader or as an employee within an organization to be more inclusive for um, employees that maybe have a different heritage than you. So thank you for joining us. Marisa, how are you doing today?
Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. This is an honor. Um, I'm Marisa Matz, and I am the founder of Matz Learning Solutions. We are a leadership training and coaching consultancy out of Southern California. We also focus our vision on creating equitable workplaces for multicultural women leaders. This vision of mine has grown over the last years to take the concepts and conversations and trainings around what it means to be a leader in an organization and really hone in on creating custom learning environments for multicultural women leaders. So I'm focused on that as well.
Yeah, I love the work you do. And
Thank
we'll
you.
probably get into more of your work in a minute. But I wanted to take you back a couple of steps because everyone has a story.
So,
How did you get into this career path? And, what has that journey, if you can do a quick recap
yes,
of
I'll,
that.
I'll
Yeah.
try. So 21 years now. Um, I always had a love for teaching. And when I finished my education, I had the fortunate opportunity to travel to Japan to be an English high school teacher. So my international experience at that time was quite limited. But if you can imagine a 22-year-old moving herself to Japan to be a teacher felt like a dream come true. It was definitely scary, but I did
Yeah.
that for a year. And when I returned back to the United States, I got an entry-level job as a bilingual customer service rep in a call center. While in this role, I attended a training workshop, like someone might do when they're in a job. And the training workshop was led by a facilitator around how to deal with difficult customers. And somehow she saw how I presented myself or something I said, and she said, I'd really love for you to come interview for a trainer position in the HR department working for me. And I
Oh,
said to
wow.
myself, oh, me? Okay. And I'd only been with the company maybe about 4 or 5 months. And I interviewed and I got the position. So, as my second corporate job back in the United States, I decided that teaching in a corporate environment seemed like a great career path for me. I'd always wanted to be a teacher. I had a business degree, and I thought, well, let's combine those two things and teach adults.
Yeah.
And so I've been growing. I grew up in this profession. It has been the only role I've had throughout my whole career. That's also very unique, especially in an HR profession. Usually, HR professionals come in and explore different areas of HR, and I've stayed on the learning and development, specifically leadership development path here. So, for 10 years, I worked for a couple of organizations as an internal employee. But what that meant for me is that I had to travel quite a bit. Like a sales position, there's a lot of travel involved. So there is also in training. So I
Mhm.
spent about 6 years on the road where I would leave my home and my friends on a Sunday evening and then come home on Thursdays and then leave again on Sundays and come back on Thursdays. And I would travel throughout the United States offering training workshops on at different company sites or in hotel conference rooms, teaching employees. And what that did over the course of 6 years was it really drained me and burned me out as I started to look around me and um, wonder how my family members were doing or my friends and family. I felt like I was so detached from them. And so I decided to take a break and I left my full time corporate role, which was really, really, really difficult for me. And I'll talk about my family a bit here. Um, I was following in the footsteps of my mother, being a working mother and professional. And at the time, I thought that I was doing the right thing. Uh, Working long hours like she did, dedicating her whole self to her organization and her team. And that's what I was doing. And I thought that was fine, it was okay. Um, but I had to be extremely courageous at this time in my career and ask myself if I wanted to take that same path, long work hours, long commutes, and a lot of travel, where I might not have thought about my other life goals. And my other life goal at the time was to become a mother. And in order for me to balance and assess my current career path, I had to ask myself if I could achieve other life goals in addition to this career goal. And so I quit. I quit my job and I left at that time. And then I took a year to plan out really what I wanted. And it did take a year of pursuing other goals. I actually became a certified yoga instructor during this time, where I felt like I was decompressing from the 10 years I spent working full time for for my organizations. And then I started and founded Matt's Learning Solutions as a consultancy to bring more flexible work to my home, be able to have 2 children, and still perform my my job just at my own with my own rules, with my own boundaries, and be able to really work in industries outside of just the one company I was working for. I was now able to explore more diverse industries. So I'm happy to say that next month I will celebrate my 10-year anniversary of starting Matt's Learning Solutions. And it's an incredible journey to think that I'm still here because I initially just launched it because I wanted to start a family and
Right,
I'm not
right.
going anywhere.
And think of the impact you have made. So I'm glad we took a minute to kind of have you
Thank
share that story because I know a lot of people are at the brink of making some of these decisions, and sometimes it feels like impossible, feels really hard, which it is hard, especially the first few years. But just being able to walk through the process with you, and as you said, now being able to do what you love, keep doing what you love, maintain a
Yes.
balance, and also you're still doing the same thing, but on your own terms, on different terms,
Hmm.
so to
Hmm.
speak. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
All right, so let's talk about celebrating Hispanic heritage,
Yes.
which is the conversation that brought us here. But I also wanted to sh- say thank you for sharing your story, because that was also a part of how we you know I wouldn't say connected, because we're already connected, but it was you showing, that telling sharing your story, showing a side of you that maybe I would not have thought of, because I have you in my network, I know about the learning and development side, but you shared a personal story, and talking about the power of storytelling, that connected us, and that brought us into dreaming up this theme for this event today. So what does this month mean to you, and how do you define, how do you celebrate, how do you acknowledge Hispanic Heritage Month?
Yes. Thank you, Lola. So, going back even further in my story, my mother is Mexican American. She grew up on the border of El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. And I live in San Diego, California, also a border region. It's a very unique perspective of the American lifestyle to live on a border, to balance and have one foot in one country and one foot in the other. And for those leaders out there who might not have a lot of experience around the border culture, I highly recommend that you research and read more about the American life on our border south. And I'm sure these lessons also serve as the border north. But in my family, it was a very strong part of our home to bring in the family values of what it means to live on the border. So my
Mm,
mother was born to two Mexican citizens from the state of Chihuahua, and they migrated up to Ciudad Juarez. And through the years, my grandfather, who is really the person that connected Lola and I just recently on LinkedIn, I posted a photograph of my grandfather who realized that this border region of El Paso, Texas, and Ciudad Juarez was an opportunity for starting a business. So in the mid 50s, he started a merchandising um, uh, business on his own, and he started driving merchandise from the United States into Mexico and back and forth, and still lived in Ciudad Juarez, but then started a family. And my mother, being the only daughter of four children, saw that the opportunities of education in the United States and raising children on this border region provided a lot of opportunity for my mother specifically. And if you can imagine the 1950s in a very traditional Mexican home, my grandfather had a very open mind about educating my mother in El Paso, Texas. So when she became of school age, he enrolled her in a all-girls private school, and he would drive her every single day with him as he went to work across the border so she could go to school and have these opportunities. Now, what's really interesting is that my mother has three brothers, and they were educated on the Mexico side, but he knew that the opportunities that my mother would have by being educated in the United States would open doors for her. And so from my mother's kindergarten year all the way through university, she crossed the border. Um, in her adult life, she came to California and left her very nuclear Mexican traditional family. And my grandfather pushed her and said, go for it, moved to California in the 70s, and she never returned. She's still a California resident. But what the moral of this story is my grandfather had the mindset of an entrepreneur. He knew that moving his family closer to the border and then giving his only daughter these kinds of opportunities would help the entire family eventually through the generations that followed him. And so I think about my journey towards being a small business owner and following in his footsteps and making him proud. He's passed now, but making him proud that I had the courage to have my own business, to call it my own, to be able to foresee the future of my daughter and her education and her business opportunities, which is why I'm turning to multicultural women leadership to just take a different perspective and approach around what leadership means, knowing that he is ultimately the person that sparked it in our family. So I think that's really what this month means to me, is even just having the safety and ability to have this conversation, because it wouldn't come up normally. And oh yeah, let me tell you the story of my grandfather. It just doesn't happen organically like that, except during this month. I've just felt inclined to share the story, and here we are. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was great. um, Celebrating Hispanic heritage. So I think, thinking about the audience, the people that are listening, but also bringing the years of experience you've had around working with organizations and learning and development. I wanted to ask, more from like a teaching and insight standpoint now. How can organizations celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in order to honor the contributions, made by Hispanic employees, leaders, and create a culture that acknowledges these diverse experiences of Hispanic employees? What are some ways, some examples that you would really recommend?
Thank you, Lola. I'm going to approach this question in two parts. One, from a leadership perspective, if you are a leader in your organization, how to have better and deeper conversations with people. And then the second approach that I'll get to second is around the ERG structure and what that can thrive and flourish in organizations. So I'll get to that second. So first, I work with leaders quite often on seeing their team members on an individual basis and considering conversations, one-on-one check-ins, sitting down and really being able to give your undivided attention to the person sitting in front of you without any distraction, to get to know the people deeply. Now, it may be easy and natural for some leaders to have conversation, open up, share things about personal life, and then it's easy for some employees to open up to their managers about who they are and what their personal lives are. Now, on the flip side, it can be very unnatural for some to openly share, to talk about personal stuff at work. So given these natural tendencies, I ask all leaders to consider their own natural tendencies, whether you're the kind of leader that shares or doesn't share, but to think about each person that works on the team and think about what that person's natural tendency is. Because more often than not, employees want their leaders to know who they are in and out of work. It is a natural human need to connect and build relationships with others, especially their managers.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I work with leaders, I coach leaders on challenging assumptions that people don't want to have relationship with you because you're the boss. and try to remove that assumption. Because when we as leaders can open up, even if it's not natural for us and we don't like to share personal things, but when we can extend a branch out to our team member and share a little bit about ourselves,
Just a little bit. Yep.
it can do wonders. When that employee sitting in front of you hears something about your life and who you are, or where you grew up, or a story about a family member, that makes you seem like you're a human. You're not a boss, you're
Yes.
just a person.
Yeah, a person. Yeah.
Yes. And so when that happens and that branch is extended, your employee will respond.
Right.
And so whether you're having a conversation with someone who has maybe some similar heritage than you or very different heritage than you, they are going to share more about themselves. And so what you will notice is this free flow of exchange between two people, whether it's a manager and their employee, or they're an employee and another employee. One person has to give first. And if you're in a leadership role, I encourage it to be you.
You. Yep.
Yeah. And know that the moment you become a leader, you're going to be seen differently. So
Yeah.
how do you proactively reach out and build relationship with the people around you so that they can share with you and then you share with them? And now you've created a platform, a foundation for building more trust because you were willing to share who you are with your people and they share with you. So I know that is a common practice of mine, and I share it with leaders almost every single day, is think about who you're working with and talking with on an individual basis. Try not to think of your team as a whole at this time. These are very individual conversations to build trust, to get to know people, and open up more. Still stick to the work,
Mhm.
absolutely. But these foundational conversations showing who you authentically are at work can really have and create an environment where people come and say, I can be who I am. I am Mexican American. I am first generation Filipino. Oh, that's another thing. I have a lot to say about this topic, Lola. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. That's why we're here.
I didn't speak of my father, so some of you might be saying, "Oh, she looks
That's
Hispanic, but
good.
not really." So my father is Filipino. He immigrated to the United States at age 18, and when he met my mother, they had a lot in common. Um, Both countries, the Philippines and Mexico, were colonized by Spain, and so therefore religious faith is something that they have in common. It was not really it didn't feel too much like a multiracial home because of the religious faith
What bind
uh,
it? Yeah.
bound
Commonalities.
the family. Yeah, it's like, oh, we do that in Mexico too. And then my dad would say, oh, yeah, we do that in the Philippines too. So it
Right.
didn't feel too much. Like I actually lived in three different worlds, Mexico, Philippines, and the United States. And it was just this
Wow.
delicate
I didn't
mixture
even
of
know
these
the
things.
Filipino American side of you. Okay. So this
Yes,
is
that
again
too.
when we talk about people, multiple layers, and I talk about intersectionality a lot. It's
Mm,
the richness of the
yes,
person, a single person,
yes,
and sometimes it takes a minute to kind of
yes.
unpeel that.
Mm. And so then that's my point exactly, is when you're in a leadership role, you can make lots of assumptions about someone's identity, who they are, where they're from the external visual presence of someone. But
Right.
not until you actually have a conversation and peel off all the layers do you
Mhm.
really know who that person is.
Yeah.
And, we are very complex humans with multifaceted stories. And people really want to share their story. They want to share how their families came to the United States,
Right.
how family weekends were, what people did or people do on the weekends. All those things make a person who they are, and not just a work employee, but a
Right.
person, an
Person.
individual as a
Yep.
whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
And I
compelling.
really love that because I think, especially because depending on the industry, sometimes it could be quite technical. And
Yes.
like we don't have time for all the fluff. We're very functional, we just want to deliver. It's not sustainable. You're not working with robots. You're
Exactly.
working with people. So really good. I hope leaders, take a lot away from that conversation and you sharing.
Thank you.
So I think there were supposed to be two parts of your
Yes,
response.
I was going to go over there.
We got to go into the individual
The-
employee, individual contributor, and what are
mm,
some of the ways that they are able to support this, support, lead, or
yes.
champion inclusion in this area.
Yes. Um, the ERG structure in organizations, if you have ERGs, is such a rich and valuable space for people to go.
Mhm.
And when you can create employee resource groups, it serves as a community of similarities and commonalities, of sharing stories. And so, for organizational leaders first, I encourage you and challenge you to think about what Hispanic really means, because we can all look very different and be called and identify with being Hispanic.
Right.
And all you need to do is ask someone, tell me your story.
Mm.
And then you just sit and listen. And
And
you will
listen.
hear about these layers of onion, or layers of who someone is, and they will share with you, just like I just threw in my Filipino side here, because I'm here to speak about Hispanic Heritage Month, but I have that all blended in.
Right.
um, so that's really important to me, is to have leaders challenge what it means and looks like to be Hispanic, because there is just such a diverse story to the Hispanic colonization
Yeah.
and mixture of cultures that make up someone who would identify as Hispanic. And so back to the ERG group dynamics, that is a space where we can come in and maybe release some guard.
Mm.
I'm at work, but I'm with people who identify as being Hispanic, and maybe
Yeah.
I can say something, or I can be of a different energy because I'm with people who
My
get me.
people.
Mhm,
Yeah, in a
mhm.
different way.
Versus, okay, now I'm in a meeting again, and I'm with my coworkers, and I have to behave a certain way. And this code switching
Right.
is, I'm going to say, a habit. It's what happens. It's what we
Yeah.
do to
Mhm.
survive in environments, especially work environments, where we might be one of few Hispanic employees or team members. So this space and allowing employee resource groups to serve as support communities with each other, be able to have conversations around challenges we face in the workplace, what we've done to persevere through organizational dynamics or microaggressions. Sharing that out loud can really make us feel like we're not the only, but we're one
Yeah.
of many. So I feel so deeply about organizations creating spaces for ERGs and employees.
And employees. Yeah, no, as an immigrant myself and somebody that has benefited from being a part of ERGs in
Yes,
a global environment, definitely understands the code switching part. And maybe to build on that, is my next question is about, you had a blog post that you wrote about resilience.
yes,
And we just talked, you just shared a little bit about being this person in this space and then going into the ERG space and being this person. And we
Yeah.
know that even for companies that have the best of intentions, this process is a journey, right? Of being able to help somebody or have somebody be able to show up when they say the word authentically in the workplace, right? Authenticity in the workplace, it's hard.
It's complex and very
And
hard.
it's
Yes.
complex. So
Yes.
I think, if you want to share a little bit about that, some practical ways that you could build resilience in your workplace as you do this work, as you get comfortable sharing your story, as you get comfortable as a leader, right? What is the role that resilience play here?
Thank you. You know, when you have an immigrant story that's close to your home generational life, you will hear people around you share stories of resilience, either um, coming to the United States, finding work in the United States, having children, educating children in the United States. Those are all stories of resilience because we don't have the multi-generational experiences that have been passed down in families that have been here for many, many years. We are
Yes.
newer to this country. And so I encourage everyone, if you are an immigrant yourself or a child of immigrants, to think about those resilient stories that you've heard around your dinner tables or with your parents or grandparents and say, wow, they persevered and they made it through that. I'm in this challenge at work. What can I learn from what I've been told or taught
Mm,
around figuring it out, around bouncing back from a challenge and say to yourself, what can I control right now in my situation? I learned a phrase many years ago when I was laid off, unfortunately. Someone shared with me the phrase, control the controllables.
mm,
And if I think of every life challenge I've ever had throughout my mid 40 years of life, I think about how I can spend my time and energy focused on the things I can actually control. So when we're faced with challenges at work, difficult relationships at work, even when a project goes awry, being very diligent about pausing and saying to yourself, okay, what can I control right now?
mhm.
What can I do right now within my span of influence to take action? Because there's going to be things that are
Oh,
so
that's
beyond
great.
our control. And if we waste our energy with that, we're going to get home to our kids and our families exhausted. So, really pausing and taking some deep breaths and saying, okay, what can I do about this right now? And
Yeah.
I think that's just a lesson that I've brought with me.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. I love it because, and I think it also speaks to when we talk about cultural differences, background differences, how does it relate to work?
Yeah.
Because of these lessons, because of these stories, because of these experiences, how can I translate all of that into helping me in my place of work, within my organization, within my projects to do a great job? Because we all have it. And I'm going to also hold on to that. Like, what can I control? Because I think another aspect of what can I control when everything seems to be all over the place is it gives you a sense of accomplishment and win.
Mhm.
When you
Mhm.
okay, I can control two things, and I'm going to try and take action around these two
Yes.
right now and feel
Yes.
like I accomplished something or I did something. And that can
Mhm.
be very encouraging and
Mhm.
motivating. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank
Yes.
you
Thank
for
you.
showing up. Thank
My
you for
pleasure.
sharing your story and for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, anything to add before I kind of close us out?
Yeah. If anyone needs to reach out or find me, I'm on LinkedIn, Marisa Matz, and I'm also on matslearning.com. If anyone has any of these multicultural questions or interested in just really having deeper conversations in the workplace, it's really centered around the work that I do. So thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Lola.
Yeah. And you said mathslearning.com. Maths is MATZ,
Z, MATZ,
learning.com.
mathslearning.com.
Yeah. I wanted to spell that out because we have people listening from different platforms that might not
Great.
be able to have the LinkedIn access, but you can
Thank you.
visit the site to check out Marisa's work and follow up with her if you have any other questions. You can also send an email message to me as well on LinkedIn or email Lola at eqimindset.com. And we sort of, you brought my two worlds together today, even though it was not intentional, that I felt like I needed to also mention my nonprofit. So I do have a nonprofit called Immigrants Incorporate Inc. And exactly, I didn't pay Marisa to talk about the immigrant experience, but that's exactly what you did talk about. Is the beneficiaries of the Immigrants Incorporate platform. We have a membership platform that is open for people to join. It's really around building a community for immigrant professionals and children of immigrants in the workplace. And we have a virtual community. We also have local in-person events here in San Diego, hoping to have more in-person locations around the country next year, 2025. But October 9, if you're listening to this before October 9, we have an in-person mixer event with an amazing panel and some delicious food. So hoping you can join us if you're local to San Diego on October 9. But thank you so much, Marisa, for being here, for sharing your
Thank
story.
you. So fun. I so enjoyed this. Thank you for hosting me, Lola, and it's wonderful that you're doing this work.
Thank you. Bye, Marisa.
Thank you.